All right, Buffalo Bills fans, welcome to the latest episode of The Walkthrough. I am your host, Anthony Marino. Happy to be here with you, part of the Overreaction Sports Network. And of course, we are brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. All right, week 4 of the NFL season for our Buffalo Bills is here, back at Highmark Stadium, 1 p.m. kickoff against the New Orleans Saints. For many of you Bills fans, I'm sure you are very excited with that 1 p.m. kickoff to have that home game at Highmark Stadium. I get it. And I personally like the primetime games, but those 1 p.m. kickoffs on a Sunday afternoon, there's something a little bit different about those in Orchard Park. So I hope everybody has a great time on Sunday if you are attending the game at Highmark Stadium. As I mentioned, this show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Just so you know, right now the point spread on this game, the Bills are a 15.5-point favorite. That line has moved down from 16.5 points to over-under, currently set at 48.5. And, you know, with this, I'll kind of get into my expectations in just a little bit for this matchup. Personally, I hate these games where you're like the huge odds-on favorite. I don't know. There's something weird about it to me, especially in the NFL. I never like to take an opponent lightly, and I'll get into that in just a little bit. The Bills do have some injuries, right? The Friday afternoon injury report came out. A few things, I guess, no new additions or surprises that took place. Ed Oliver and Matt Milano out again, did not practice all week. You know, it seemed like Sean McDermott, at least when he spoke in advance of the week 3 game against the Miami Dolphins, that there was some optimism that they were improving, that things might be going to where they need to. Again, they did not practice this entire week, so, you know, no expectation for them to play. Again, neither one was placed on injured reserve. Be curious to see what happens in the following week, not to get ahead of ourselves, but the Bills do host the New England Patriots on Sunday Night Football in week 5, and will that be a time that we see a return for Ed Oliver and Matt Milano? Certainly two important pieces of the Buffalo Bills defense. 2 other guys, limited participants in practice, both listed as questionable. Spencer Brown with a hamstring and AJ Epinesa with a pectoral injury. I guess I'm a little bit more optimistic based on Spencer Brown, just because we heard from him on One Bills Live last week that it sounds like he is going to play after a limited practice on Friday. I don't know, like the fact that he was on One Bills Live, if he was injured and if there was some question, would they really put him on the show? I don't know. I don't want to get into any of that kind of speculation that could be there. I guess I'm a little bit more optimistic with him than I am with AJ Epinesa, based on some of the quotes that you've heard about some of the pain around that pectoral injury. Is it something where he will be out on Sunday? We will wait and see, right? But you talk about not having that Oliver and Matt Milano, and then you throw AJ Epinesa into the mix. Certainly he is not as critical a piece of the defense as those 2 are, but just another hit on top of Maxwell Hairston as well. And just, you know, this Bills defense in week 4, a bit more banged up than I would certainly like to see them. Again, right now, I'm going to make the assumption that Spencer Brown is going to play, but with a hamstring, you never know, right? That can flare up during pregame walkthrough or different pieces. They might just want to be a little bit more conservative when it comes to that. So something to keep an eye on. Obviously, right, like recording this Saturday mornings as we do. It'd be interesting to see if there are any call-ups from the practice squad that might give an indication to the health of Spencer Brown. Now, listen, I got a few things I want to talk about with the game, but also need to let you know today's show sponsored by our friends at Anchor Bar. You can enjoy the games at your local Anchor Bar or order online for pickup or delivery. Anchor Bar, home of the original Buffalo Chicken Wing, is the place to watch the Buffalo Bills and all of your favorite sports teams. So make sure you go to anchorbar.com, see all locations and info for ordering. Anchor Bar original Buffalo wings. I mean, and you know this, they're fresh, never frozen, jumbo, high quality wings. They're deep fried and sauced to your liking. And listen, they got over 24 varieties of sauces and dry rubs that you can choose from. In addition to the wings, all Anchor Bar locations have a wide variety of menu choices such as appetizers, boneless wings, chicken tenders, pizza, beef on weck, fresh burgers, sandwiches, salads, wraps, and so much more. And currently, Anchor Bar has 16 locations with 3 new locations opening this fall: Tucson, Arizona, Frisco, Texas, and Raleigh, North Carolina. So big thanks to everyone at Anchor Bar for supporting not just the walkthrough, but all of our shows here at the Overreaction Sports Network. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure you comment, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe wherever you consume this. That means so much to us. It helps more and more Bills fans kind of find this content each and every week. And we always appreciate you tuning in, right? We're trying to do some great things here. Content coming each and every day for you from not just myself, but Joe Miller, John Fina, Jerry Ostrowski. And we appreciate you tuning in to each and every show. So listen, let's talk a little bit more about this matchup. This is a little bit of a recurring theme, I guess, for me, because I talked about it with the Jets game in week 2, the Dolphins in week 3, and now the Saints in week 4. And at least as, far as looking at the point spread with these games, right? Like the expectations have risen for the Bills, right? As you were like a 7-point favorite against the Jets, and then 12.5 against the Dolphins, and now 15.5 against the Saints, of just like, yeah, the Bills are 3-0. The Saints are 0-3. And it seems a little bit like the narrative out there is just maybe some of us taking the Saints a little bit lightly. And understandably, right? A horrible showing against the Seahawks in week 3, relatively tough losses to the 49ers and Cardinals in the first 2 weeks of the season. And now here we are, right? They're traveling up to Buffalo for what might feel like a ho-hum type of matchup. And, listen, I expect the Bills to win, no kind of, situation there. But, when it comes to the Bills defense, the injuries that we've talked about before, I'd like to see a little bit more, right? I mean, you've played 3 games so far this season, 1 great performance on defense with the Jets game, and 2 that leave you, kind of scratching your head a little bit, at least in some situational pieces. And we've talked about the third down defense before and how we need to see more there. I certainly need to see more. You do, Sean McDermott, that's not ideal for the Bills. And maybe this is the type of opportunity and opponent where they can get right, where you've got a relatively inexperienced quarterback in Spencer Rattler. But to that point where I was going with this before, there are weapons on this Saints offense, right? You talk about Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, Juwan Johnson at tight end. Like, these are guys that can make plays. And Kamara is the one that probably concerns me the most, right? A pass-catching back out of the backfield, got some shiftiness, right? Like, he's got a, if I'm going to compare James Cook to a player, Alvin Kamara is probably the one. And obviously there are different points in their career, but, we can see the Bills run defense struggle in recent weeks. And you can look at it and just say, okay, when you have a dynamic playmaker like this, and when you're missing a Matt Milano and you're missing Ed Oliver up the middle, still got some questions at safety with kind of what's happening there. Like, just don't take this lightly, right? Because you don't want it to be one of those scenarios where, kind of like the Dolphins game. Like, you start doing some good things, all of a sudden a couple 3-and-outs on the Bills offense, and, you're letting this team hang around a little bit more than you need to. Don't let this team hang around, right? This is not one of those situations. Somebody, I think it was maybe Dan Fates from Buffalo Plus, said, like, use the term playing with your food. Like, don't play with your food. Like, let's get this done. Let's, keep the pedal to the metal, especially on the offensive side. I realize you want to establish the run, certain things that can take place there, but like, let's take care of business and get out of there. But you got to take care of business first, right? No lingering, no just kind of like sitting at this at halftime and it's like a 17-14 type of game and you're waiting for things to kick in with the Bills. Like, I hope that's not going to be the case on Sunday, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way. So, listen, as we look at this too, and I realize it always ties to opponents. Like, I was looking this morning, you'd think to yourself that coming off that mini bye, right? You play a Thursday night football game, a little bit of extra rest, that would be an advantage for the Bills. But under Sean McDermott, coming off of a Thursday football game, the Bills are only 2-4 in those 6 matchups that they've had, the following week. And sometimes it can be tied to the opponent. I mean, certainly where the Bills were at that time. But again, 2-4 is 2-4. Like, that's what your record is coming off of a Thursday football where you have this extra time to rest, and you would think that the Bills would, get a little bit more healthy, get again, be a little bit more well-rested. I was expecting that to be a more positive statistic. And when I looked at it before the show today, I didn't love seeing that, right? Especially when you go into one of these games where you feel like you just might be a little bit more lackluster than you need it to be. So that's where when you come out, you hope that that everything is good to go. And I'm sure the fans at Highmark Stadium will definitely be good to go on Sunday. So listen, a few things that I do want to talk about kind of for this matchup, right? 3 things that I'm watching. Of course, I mean, you watch everything. Just because I say these 3 things doesn't mean that I'm ignoring or avoiding anything else. But just when you're talking about a week 4 matchup, a lot to kind of get excited about. The topic this week that seems to at least been touched on by every member of the media, so many fans, content creators, is 3rd round pick Landon Jackson. We have not seen him activated yet, and I hope this is the opportunity for him. Maybe, because of AJ Epinez's situation, it's something that happens, or maybe it's just more along the lines of, okay, we've seen what we've gotten from Javon Solomon, and what can we get from Landon Jackson here? And I get it. There's still some question of what he can bring to the team on special teams compared to what Solomon does, but at least at the defensive end position, I feel like it's time to put some plays on tape and let's see what this guy can do for the Bills. Anybody out there referring to him as a bust, like, just needs to not just pump the brakes, like slam the brakes. Like, this way too early to make any sort of, comment like that. And I get it. Like, you can say like, oh, there's been other 3rd round picks that have been busts, but I remember guys too that early in their careers that many fans had just felt like was kind of a wasted pick. Spencer Brown certainly early on was not the fan favorite that he is now for the Bills. We all remember what James Cook rookie season was as a late 2nd round pick. Terrell Bernard, Dorian Williams. Like, there's just been some of these where it's, it takes a little bit of time. With that being said, I really hope we get to see Landon Jackson on Sunday. Not taking the opponent lightly or anything like that, but it's not that Javon Solomon is giving you a ton on the defensive side of the ball. Again, more of a special teams contributor, and I don't want to dismiss special teams, but I also got a little bit concerned that Joey Bosa played 87% of snaps against the Dolphins. And I get it. It was a closer game than you would have liked it to have been. He was kind of one of the few guys that was producing on the defensive side of the ball. So you kind of went with it. But I would prefer, for him to be playing closer to 50% of snaps as opposed to 87%. I mean, geez, like, this is a guy that you are going to need for the playoffs. And you just got to kind of take it a little bit easy as you get to that point. Speaking of talking about getting to the playoffs, like, way too much conversation this week around the 1 seed for my liking. So when I talk about pumping the brakes on things, I'm gonna throw that into the mix as well. Not that ties to this game, and I get it. It's an opponent with like a 16.5 point spread. 15.5 the latest when you look at FanDuel. But like, one of those situations. Okay, you're going to talk about the bigger picture. I get it, but 1 week at a time. That's more my mentality right now. And if we get to the point where the Bills are the 1 seed, that's fantastic. But the only way you can get there is by winning the next game in front of you. And for us, that's the New Orleans Saints. So listen, obviously looking at Landon Jackson, I hope when the active roster comes out on Sunday before the game that he is listed as active and we get to see what he can do in a Buffalo Bills uniform for the first time this season. Other thing I'm looking at, which wide receiver will step up. Through 3 weeks, the Bills have had a different leading wide receiver or pass catcher, I should say, in each of those games, right? Week 1 against Baltimore, it was Keon Coleman. Week 2 against the Jets, not the biggest passing attack that week, but Josh Palmer led the team in receiving yards. And week 3, it was Dalton Kincaid. So, kind of in that everyone eats mantra, is it going to be something, and I'm not saying like it's a rotation where, it's your week now or this or that, but just how the game script kind of goes along. Like, is this the week for Khalil Shakir where he has a bit more of that breakout? Good performance last week when it came against the Dolphins, critical touchdown, to help the Bills secure that victory. But is this going to be one of those where when I kind of take a look at this Saints defense, kind of more production out of the slot and seeing what he can do, Does he end up getting peppered with targets and kind of have one of those 8, 9, 10 reception type games? Not anything crazy, so much from a yardage standpoint, but like, as that type of possession receiver and what he can bring to the team. Is it time for him? Is it time for Elijah Moore? Maybe it's Dawson Knox or maybe James Cook or, Jackson Hawes. I know someone's waiting for me to throw his name out there. So, in this everyone eats, model, it certainly has been working through this 3 weeks. And who's it going to be in week 4? My money is on Khalil Shakir. I think it's an opportunity for him this week. Again, kind of when you look at the Saints defense, nothing too ridiculous as far as a pass rush goes. I mean, certainly good linebacker play, but is it going to be something where he can get open over the middle? And we see this as a Khalil Shakir type of game. Last thing I'm keeping an eye on, Ray Davis. No touches for him last week against the Dolphins, only played a couple of snaps. And, listen, we can all be excited about James Cook and what he's doing so far. Love to see it. But you also want to see a bit of that balance where it doesn't all have to be on Cook, that, through the beginning of the season, that he's just taking hit after hit and kind of that wear and tear. You need that second back that can, shoulder some of that. And I'm not talking about, Davis playing a ton of snaps or getting a ton of touches, but like 3, 4, 5 rushes, kind of allow him, to get a little bit of momentum. I realize it hasn't been there yet, and you might be looking at things, but, the only way to break out of that slump is to get more touches, right? I mean, if he is just sitting on the sideline and just coming in for 3 or 4 snaps a game, that's not going to help. I can look at this as being that potential matchup this week where we see a bit more of Ray Davis, give him an opportunity to make some plays. And again, I think you kind of get just like, 1 or 2 decent runs under your legs, kind of starts to build a little bit of that momentum, right? A little bit of the confidence that you would love to see. And I'd like to, him to be that guy. I know we can talk about Ty Johnson and, of course, great third down back, pass catcher. Like, he's fulfilling his role that you would expect from the team, and that's fine. But I still have a level of confidence in Ray Davis. And I just don't want to see any sort of burnout or wear and tear that is too much for James Cook, because it's a long season. And here we are 3 weeks in, and you just want to make sure that, he's still able to produce as the year goes along. So listen, there's plenty of other things you could touch on with this game, like, the progression of Cole Bishop and how's he going to continue to look, right? We talk about Trey White like each and every week, like what he's going to bring to the table. The rookie defensive tackles, again, right? Ed Oliver being out of this game, we will continue to see TJ Sanders and Deion Walker, and hopefully they, take another step, right? I think the expectations are much more in check, at least for Sanders right now, and we should see some extensive playing time from both of them. And I'll be curious to see how those guys look. Mentioned this earlier. Don't know the practice squad call-ups yet. I would not be surprised if this is a Jordan Phillips game. Again, to kind of bring him up and have someone that can, as he's had a few weeks now with the Bills, see what he can bring to the table. Zion Logan's already played and been called up 2 weeks, so he's only has one more call-up left this season. I don't know if it's something that the Bills are going to look to do that during just the first 3 weeks. So, for me, if I'm making a prediction on anyone getting called up, I'm going to go with Jordan Phillips, but that remains to be seen. So, listen, what I'm looking for, Landon Jackson, who's going to be that leading wide receiver for the Bills, and can we get some more Ray Davis this week? And again, when I, thinking back to earlier, like, listen, when I say like pump the brakes on, talking about the 1 seed, and when I say like don't take this opponent lightly, like, that's me. Listen, if you want to be out there on social media with as much bravado as you have, or in the comments section here, like, absolutely, that is your right. For me, having been around the block a couple of times, I prefer to play it a little bit more conservatively, but hopefully it'll be an enjoyable Sunday afternoon for all of us, whether you're watching the game at home on TV, if you're with our friends at Anchor Bar watching the game, or if you're at Highmark Stadium enjoying the Buffalo Bills taking on the New Orleans Saints. So listen, I appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week to the walkthrough, as I said before. Comment, like, subscribe. We always appreciate everything you're doing here with us on the Overreaction Sports Network. I'm going to get out of here for now. But as always, go Bills.